the stuff you've done with AI and automation, is the data source, have there been challenges, or have there been challenges around specific data sources? Or do you have recommendations around data sources? Say I'm going to start a new project. What would be your recommendation?
Giving clean data to your AI agent
Yeah,
gives you better results. So
100%.
the cleaner the data, the optimal result you would get. My bed is digital data science, and he spoke about how sometimes we feel like we just export data, we don't clean it up, and we just pass it through it. And
Mm,
so the agent would also not give you the best. We
yeah,
need to make sure that if we're connecting to even a website, are we able to read from the website? Because some AI agents
yeah,
face that issue. Whenever we're
yeah,
connecting to a website and the hidden code behind it, they're unable to read from it, they're unable to interact with it. There are encryption in it that it cannot
yeah,
unravel. So, and if this agent is not working, if you are not really a technical person, you might not even inspect the page to find out that they hid a lot of things,
mhm.
or the website. That's another thing about
Dynamic
building
data.
with standard. That's another thing about maintaining standard. If somebody that was building the website did not take as much time to follow the best practice while building it,
Yeah,
it will be confused when he gets there and he's reading data that he doesn't understand. And what you are seeing and physically and what is seen back at totally different. And so you need to always make sure that the website, every data you're connecting has credible data. And so I
yeah,
think this is where we might not do a deep dive into how do we make our data credible. But also,
mm.
even in the website front, you need to make sure that the website we're connecting, they are readable. Because even RPA faces this problem where we're
Ah,
trying to read from a website and you cannot read the item or you cannot read
yeah.
the object. Or if it's something that someone is going every time to change, you might even have face difficulty with it. What about you? Have you faced an issue? What are some like
Oh, yeah.
restrictions?
He literally just hit the nail on the head back to back to back. Because there was projects we were doing that
Yes,
involved searching on the web, and
yes.
it was so funny because we would go on the website, we see the data, it wasn't finding it. And I had
Yes.
lots of digging with a colleague, and we realized, well, it was all dynamic JavaScript, and
Oh,
it uses Bing search. So within Copilot Studio, when you're like doing the web search, it uses Bing search, and that relies on indexing. Bing, the way search works basically is they have
yes.
like a that indexes websites continuously. But the thing is, it couldn't actually index those values because of the way they've been coded. So the Bing search wasn't returning the information, and so I think at the end of the day, we found an alternate data source that was still credible to be able to supply that data. So yeah, your point you mentioned about even the reachability of the data, I'll say that
Yes.
gave us a lot of trouble, but eventually we found the same.
Still on our data topic, although this is a little bit not so much in AI, how can you give us a real example whereby starting with the wrong data affects the outcome of your project? I know you've given
And
us an example with websites, even a Power Platform in general, if we want to expand it, just so we hit the nail on the head on how important having credible data is.
I think especially when we're saying data, is it really affects the AI side of things much more than say the app or even automation.
Mission.
Because for app automation, you have control. You can actually see it. If
See it.
it's wrong, maybe you're pointing to a wrong column, you can
Yes.
see that live and direct, right? But for the AI agents, I think a recent one is, it wasn't me, it was a colleague that was working with a client on the project. And I think they had an Excel sheet with about 600 columns,
Oh,
maybe
wow.
between 300 to 600 columns. I think 300 was like the condensed format. It was way bigger than that. I wanted AI to reason across everything and just answer very intelligent
Question.
questions. The engineer actually tried to get it to work as much as he could, but it was really the data. And effectively, they've had to go back and do a review to see what they actually need. Because a lot of times when we hear, we're just like, oh, well, this is magic. Let's just throw everything at it,
Yeah, that's it.
figure it out. But you will get something, but you won't get the best.
Mm.
And you don't need to hit a fly with an hammer, or how do they say that? You don't need to have all the information for you to get your agent. How about you just give the agent the relevant information you want? right? So rather than expecting to just say, "Oh, this agent has access to all the files that I have access to, so it can answer my questions." How about you just create a folder with the actual files that you care about, right? And you use that folder in SharePoint as a knowledge source for the agent. With that, you get much more concise results rather than just giving it access to everything. So those are some things. It's more of an architectural question at this point, right? So it's like, do you actually need all that data? In this case, they found out that they don't really need all that data. And that solves the problem for the engineer, because at the end of the day, they're going to come back with a much more concise data set that the AI will be able to work
That's so good.
with.